Well, I saw Thor Love and Thunder this past Thursday, so we have to talk about a full breakdown of all the things from this movie, stuff we liked, stuff we didn't, and on top of it, talking about Easter eggs, mid-credit and post-credit scenes. So this is your spoiler warning, so be prepared for spoilers that are going to be incoming. Let's talk about the beginning of the movie. So the beginning of the movie picks up with Gorr the God Butcher before he's Gorr the God Butcher. And the thing is, he's walking through the desert with his daughter. In the comics, he has a son, and it's a little bit different because he also runs into the gods while in that desert still. But in the movie, he runs into an oasis where the gold god has already killed Null. And the difference is here is that in the comics, the gods are already both dying. Null is dead, the gold one is on the brink of death. Gorr gets pissed off and kills him. Pretty much the same way he does in the movie. He stabs him with a necro sword, which I thought was pretty interesting that they kept similarities still. One of the cool things too is we had Korg telling the aliens of the world that Thor was on about Thor's life story. We got flashbacks to his family dying, to his friends dying, and really where he went throughout the years and how many people he's lost, which I thought was really good for what we were getting. It was a very humorous movie, but it still had kind of that depth to it. And that Guardians sequence too was very short. I expected it to be short, but I don't know, it felt very rushed. They kind of blew through the Guardians fairly quickly, but I like how when the Guardians are fighting on this alien planet, Thor's just chillaxing, hanging out, meditating, and Peter's like, hey, we need your help. So he's like, fine, I'll come and help. He gets on Stormbreaker like a witch's broom and flies down to the battlefield, pretty much just winning the battle with no issue at all compared to the Guardians who were having a tough time. And he does the Rohan pose between two bikes. And on top of it, he destroys one of their tanks that kind of looks like the tank from The Dark Knight. Like 100%. And maybe that's because Christian Bale was in the movie and they designed it that way. But no, that's what I'm thinking has happened. Gorr says his classic line, all gods must die, which I thought was really awesome. And even though Gorr is not 100% comic accurate, I think it still looks good because Christian Bale does such a good performance. And that's why. If he didn't have that performance, I would have a little bit more of an issue with it because I like the way Gorr looked. Even though he looked weird as shit, I think he still looked pretty cool. And the Necrosword was a little different too, and I still think the Necrosword would have looked cooler if it was more like a symbiote, but they might have been staying away from that because of the Venom movie, and maybe they can use symbiotes. I love how when the Guardians get a bunch of distress calls, right away, Thor's like, we gotta go help them. And he sees Lady Sif, and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go help my friend. And the Guardian's like, well, we'll go this way, because you could tell that they were just tired of Thor, and they wanted to get rid of him. But I did like how Korg was with them during all their adventures, too. I really hope when we get to the Guardians movie, they do reference Thor and the events prior, just a little bit to tie it together. I like when Lady Sif tells Thor about Gorr going to New Asgard to kill all of them. Of course, he ends up going right back right away, and all the creatures are already fighting. Valkyrie comes in on her Pegasus looking badass as shit, and I thought that was a really cool scene, because you also got the moment of Thor finding out that Jane is now wielding Mjolnir, which I thought was also really well done, and I loved their back and forth throughout the entire movie. It was very awkward, and you could really tell they love each other, but they didn't know how to go about it because they both kind of ended it, and they wanted to get back together eventually, and Jane was dealing with her cancer storyline, which I thought was also really well done. Even though she has cancer, and Mjolnir is wiping away her chemo every time she becomes Thor, she's still going out because she needs to fight, because she hears the call of a hero, and she wants to be one. I also thought it was interesting that Jane's worthiness put back Mjolnir together, and that was because we got a flashback showing more context into this. So we find out that Thor and Jane actually had a way bigger relationship than we all knew about. They were together for a lot longer than just the movies, and then they slowly drifted apart. But during this time, Thor tells Mjolnir to always protect Jane because he loves her, and that's why Mjolnir gets put back together and works for Jane, is because of that reason. Also, we find out during the fight that Heimdall had a son. His name is Astrid, but he wants to go by Axel. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I didn't know he had a son, but he still has the same powers. So maybe we'll get a new Heimdall within his son, and the Rainbow Bridge will come back. Omnipotent City was very interesting when we went to it, because that's where all the gods were, and they mentioned orgy, which was really funny and awkward. And I love how Valkyrie just goes and gets the different robes for them by knocking some guys out. We got a Hercules name drop during it, which ends up coming back around for the mid-credit scene. And we got to see a bunch of gods. We got a god of dreams. We got the dragon, which reminded me a lot of the Shang-Chi dragon. But, of course, it's not the same one. We got the Dumpling God Bow, which was really funny because it was literally just a CGI dumpling. We also got the Conan god, which was Korg's god, which was pretty cool. And I really loved how Thor was a fanboy for Zeus because thunder and lightning. And I totally thought during all this too is that I thought that Gorr was going to come here while they were talking and wipe out all the gods. But it turns out Thor and them end up just causing a shitstorm there, killing Zeus, leaving with the lightning bolt. Because we also find out during this that Zeus is scared of Gorr and doesn't want to deal with it because, you know, he's been killing a bunch of gods. He calls other gods that have died so far lower gods, but then we find out he's just a little scared. And also, Zeus almost kills Korg. Like, he throws lightning bolt through him, and the only thing survives is his face, which led to a funny moment of Valkyrie tying Korg's face to the back of her head, and then him calling out stuff behind her, which I thought was really funny. I didn't expect Korg to be taken down right away. I mean, he ended up being put together by the end of the movie again, and meeting his love, Dwayne, which he goes into the molten pits and creates a child. So Korg's going to be a dad in the next one. Really, they started taking out each character so Thor didn't have backup throughout the movie. Like, they took out Valkyrie in one scene, and then Jane got taken out for a short period of time. They really wanted that Gorr and Thor fight. After they leave Omnipotence, they go to this planet where Gorr has been hiding. And I love when they land on it, the goats just freaking hit it. And the boat just kind of lands on it after. And it was just kind of funny because you hear the goats screaming because they're just hilarious for the whole movie. And then when they get to the planet, it's all dark. Like, it's black and white because of the Necrosword and Gorr. And I thought it was really interesting. And it was probably my favorite scene in the movie because while they're doing it, every time they use one of their weapons, that's where their color comes from in the light. So every time they use Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, or the Lightning Bolt, it added a bunch of light to the scene, and I thought it was really well done. It was probably it was my favorite scene from the movie. Of course, they lose, because, you know, when you're doing a movie, the heroes have to lose at one point for them to win at the end. So they lose, they head back to New Asgard. Valkyrie's been stabbed through the back. Jane is slowly dying. And I love how they had the Thor and Jane moment where Thor is telling Jane that she can't be Thor anymore and she can't use Mjolnir because it's killing her, and that he loves her and wants to be with her, but she has to survive for that to happen. So in classic fashion, our hero goes off by himself to go fight the big bad, and this is where it kind of gets complicated and kind of a little bit of weird things because he goes to fight Gorr where Eternity is. And in this hall to reach Eternity, you have the Living Tribunal, you have Lady Death, and you also had a Celestial Head. There's a couple other heads, but I couldn't tell who they were. And you had all the kids, which Thor gives his powers to all these kids, and they're all fighting with the power of Thor, which was really cool, but at the same time, Thor just sent all these kids in the battle to die, pretty much. I mean, none of them die in the end because it's a Marvel movie, they're not going to kill a bunch of kids, but it was interesting nonetheless. And the fight was really cool because it also had Jane having the call to action to sacrifice herself to get Mjolnir to head back into the fight to make sure that Thor lived. And she comes in on the Pegasus, which was really cool. I love seeing that Pegasus. We've only got to see it like 3 times now, but it's always cool to see. They managed to destroy the Necrosword using Mjolnir's new power to break apart to conceal the sword inside and break it right there. But Gorr still ends up getting through to Eternity, which he looks exactly like he does in the comics, which is just a flat panel with the space through it. And instead of wishing to kill all gods, he wishes for his daughter to come back, which ends up with Gorr dying and Jane dying, Jane getting sent to Valhalla, and Thor taking over as an adoptive father/uncle for Gorr's daughter, which I think adds a cool dynamic to Thor because now he's going to be a parent and he's going to be having to take care of this kid. And she's also cool because she has powers, which was weird because Gorr didn't have anything, but she was able to shoot lasers out of her eyes. So it makes me wonder what's different about her and why she can do these things. And I am also looking forward to seeing that parental side of Thor. It would seem fun at the end of the movie where Thor and her go to battle a bunch of aliens, where she's using Stormbreaker and he's using Mjolnir. Overall, the movie was a lot of fun. I thought there was a lot of moments, but let's talk about some Easter eggs I saw during it. While they were in New Asgard, we also had Infinity Cones, which was just a play on Infinity Gauntlet, but an ice cream shop. We had both Darcy and Eric come back for a short period of time. And when Thor goes to see Thalagar, the big giant dead god, that is ripped right out of the comics, and I thought that was pretty cool. But let's talk about the mid-credit scene, the post-credit scene. So in the mid-credit scene, we have Hercules. I knew he was coming. I 100% called it because with Zeus being there, I figured Gorr was going to kill Zeus, then Hercules was going to come back for revenge, but instead it was Thor almost killing Zeus, pissing him off, Zeus thinking that everyone thinks the gods are jokes, and sending Hercules to Midgard/Earth to show that they're not to be reckoned with. Which makes me wonder what's going to happen next, because I feel like Hercules is going to go to Earth, he's either going to fight in New Asgard, or he's going to end up fighting the Avengers. They're going to fight for a bit, then he's going to realize, wait, we have a bigger thing to fight, team up with them, and then become part of the team by the end of it, because Hercules has been part of the Avengers in the comics. I am looking forward to it because it is just another cool god to be added to the MCU. I love how we're getting new interesting characters, and I cannot wait to see where it goes and how the MCU expands. Then we have the post-credit scene where Jane has been sent to Valhalla, which I 100% knew that was going to happen when she died because that's straight out of the comics. Heimdall is there, which is pretty cool to see him again, but I don't think Jane is gone for good. I think she'll come back, especially because she has come back in the comics after she has died. She became Valkyrie for a little bit, so it'll be cool to see where she comes up next. I'm hoping she just gets revived and becomes Mighty Thor again. A really good movie. I cannot wait to see if we get a Thor 5, because if we do, it'll be the longest running Marvel project that we've seen, so it'll be pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think Thor is jumped to one of my favorite Avengers, even though he never was before Ragnarok, and I think Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame made me love the character a lot more. I personally really like it. What did I miss from this breakdown? Let me know in the comments. And if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button because it means a lot. And go check out my other platforms because I got a lot of stuff coming on everything else. So I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.